You know what? I am getting sick and tired of this rhetoric. Oh, who cares if the cruise lines fail? Who cares if the cruise companies fail? They're not American. They're not American companies anyways. They're not in bed with Uncle Sam paying their tax dollars. We only love America. Well, look, you're wrong. Cruising has a huge impact on Americans, and you're not being a good American by sticking your head in the sand and saying cruising doesn't matter. In today's episode of the Lido Loca Cruise Show, I'll prove it to you. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. My name's Tony. I'm your host. If you enjoyed that cruising and travel content, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. I am irritated. I want to jump right into and talk about is cruising an American thing? But let's do some of the other things that we do on the show, just so maybe we can be in a lighter mood before we hit the big topic. All right, let me take it down a notch. Let's talk about the trivia yesterday. So proud of everybody. Got the answer correctly. Talk about patriotism. What is the only American flagged cruise ship? A question so apropos for today's show. Of course, many of you got it right. Bravo, bravo. It is NCL's Pride of America, based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Not really affected by the Jones Act or the Passengers Services Act. If we had more cruise ships like that, we could probably go to Alaska. I don't know. So very good. I've got an interesting contest today, a little twist on trivia, and I think this is one that people won't get. So make sure you stay to the end and see what today's trivia question is. Also, let's take a quick look at the stocks from yesterday. It wasn't a bad situation. What I do, just so you know where these numbers come from, I take the close from the previous day, and then I compare them to the close of yesterday, and that is where it's at. Carnival Cruise Line calling it the open at 16, closed at 16.0. If you wrote out the whole day, it would have moved 0. Royal Caribbean opened at 48.25, closed at 48.53. That's a 33-cent increase. Norwegian Cruise Line opened 15.80, closed 16.08. 28-cent increase. So I'm going to say it's a green day for cruise stocks. Carnival stayed level and the other two increased. So good times. What will the market do today? Let me hit a couple of headlines. Again, I'm a little seething, ready to get to this talk about, is cruising American? I guess technically. Okay, anyways, let's talk about this. MSC Cruises to debut at Port Canaveral in November. This is a great story. Port Canaveral, one of my favorite cruise ports here in Florida. Normally to get on an MSC cruise ship, you have to go down there to Miami. I've done it a couple times. I've went on the MSC Seaside. I've gone on the MSC Divina. Both were great experiences. I had to do it in Miami, and if you've ever cruised out of Miami, it's a popular cruise port. They house a lot of cruise ships. A lot of cruising goes out of Miami, rightfully so, but I like the experience at Port Canaveral better. It's just more chill. I like the way that the port's set up and the accommodations around the port. The ability to shuttle to the port seems a little easier to me. I like it over there. And so good news, the MSC Seaside will be going to Port Canaveral for sailings in November, assuming that cruising has resumed. The Seaside will cruise out of Port Canaveral for a few months, making cruises to the Bahamas, other parts of the Caribbean, and then the MSC Divina is supposed to slide over there in March. So MSC, what some are calling the quickest growing cruise line, will be making an attempt to fill out some more of the Florida ports and sending cruise ships to Port Canaveral. That is exciting for me. Now, our second article takes a look at which cruise ports are open around the world. The article I looked at does have a heavy emphasis on European cruise ports, and so that's primarily what they're talking about, and more than likely Mediterranean cruises should start again soon. One place that's not ready to accept cruise ships that accepted a lot of cruise passengers last year, Spain. It was reported that 10 million passengers went through Spain in 2019, but they are not ready for more people to come. They are reopening their borders, but not to cruise ships. Australia, they have closed their ports to overseas cruise lines until at least September. There are some Northern European ports that have reopened. Ports which are currently reopened include Bergen, Hamburg, Dover, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Liverpool, Southampton, Stockholm, St. Petersburg, and Tromsø. One cruise port that's been in the news even before the virus outbreak, Amsterdam. Amsterdam still closed to cruise ships, and they were kind of anti-cruise ship in 2019. They were feeling that they had too much tourism into their city, that the cruise passenger didn't necessarily get off and drop a lot of coin in Amsterdam. So Amsterdam remains closed to cruise ships. Monte Carlo prohibiting cruise ships. Portugal not allowing cruise ships at this time. And of course, Canada not allowing cruise ships with more than 500 passengers until possibly later this year. This has really hindered the Alaskan cruise season, which runs from May to September. I would be surprised if there's any Alaskan cruises this year. Norwegian Cruise Line still holding out for some possible exemptions. There could be some Alaskan cruising. In Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan are still closed. This feels like a snowbird report. Do you guys have snowbird where you're at, where when it's snowing, they tell you which counties are closed? In South Pacific, Samoa, the Solomon Islands, and Fiji, they're all closed to cruise travel. And then, of course, New Zealand, we talked about that yesterday, extending the cruise ban for another 60 or 90 days. Not a lot of places open for cruising. There is one cruise line that's been doing expedition cruises, small cruises, Hurtigruten. They have been doing cruises. Norway is going to be doing some cruises for people that live in Norway. And yeah, but for the most part, everything's still closed down. Okay, so let's talk about it. I read an article today in the New York Times, and it was vague at best. There was a little conversation at the beginning. Who is holding up the progress? Who is not giving the priority? Is it the cruise lines or is it the CDC? The article laid it right on the cruise lines, saying that the cruise lines have not come up with a comprehensive plan as to how to restart cruising, hence, therefore, and ergo, the CDC is waiting on them to move. I've heard other conversations that the cruise lines have submitted a plan, Norwegian specifically, to the desk of the CDC, whoever they're supposed to talk to over there, that they haven't gotten any reply. That was, I only saw that from a couple sources. So again, there's a lot of uncertainty as to who is holding up the move to cruising. And look, nobody wants to cruise tomorrow. Every time we start talking about, let's go cruising, they're like, well, you can't cruise. It's spiking. Yeah, no, but you have to plan for cruising. You can't, you're not going to just be able to flip a switch on and, sometime next year in January and go, okay, you can cruise. It's January the 1st, and then cruising would start on January the 2nd. This is a huge industry with huge impacts, with a lot of moving pieces. If cruising is to resume, it's going to take a time to ramp up, 90 days, maybe longer. There's got to be some sort of plan in place. So the question still becomes, what will the guidelines be for cruising, and who is not giving that information? Is it the CDC? Is it the cruise lines? I don't know. I don't see any evidence out there that points one way or the other than people speculating. And so we continue to wait. But in that waiting, there is this argument. There is this, anytime you mention the cruise line, well, they're not American companies, so who cares? They should have become American companies. They should have paid their taxes. They should have followed labor laws. And since they didn't do that, then we don't care. We love America. And look, I love America too, but you know what's not American? Turning your back on fellow Americans. And by taking a dump on cruising, that's exactly what you're doing. If your ideology is, we don't care about the cruise companies because they didn't flag their ships in the United States and opposed, they took a cheaper route and flagged them in the Bahamas, therefore we don't care about cruising, then you are dumping on your fellow American. You are 100%. If you care about American jobs, if you care about hundreds of thousands of American jobs, then you should care about the future of cruising. Now, it's pretty easy to be callous, right? It's easy to just look and say, well, look, those people shouldn't have taken those jobs. And now that they don't have a job, so sad. 33 million people, they're out of work. And so why should we care about a few 100,000 that are associated with the cruise industry? You can do that, but don't act like you're some sort of great patriot if you're segmenting off part of the population that you care about and part of the population that you don't care about. It's either all or nothing. We're either in it together as Americans or we're not in it together together as Americans. I didn't mean to make this into some sort of patriotic rant, but I hate to hear these patriotic overtones that are inconsistent with what people are saying. Either you're pro-America, that means you're pro-American worker no matter what kind of job they have, or you're not. Let me give you some data. I didn't just come here to rant. Now, this data was compiled by CLIA, which is the Cruise Line International Association. That is the advocacy group. That is the cruise line industry group that works on the cruise line's behalf. So go ahead if you want and say, well, this data is no good because it's in-house. Get a grip. All right, they compiled data from 2018 into a report that was presented in 2019. They will do the same sometime later this year as we get through the mess. They'll give us the data for 2019. That's why we're using 2018 data. But let me hit you with some facts. U.S. consumers, 12.68 million U.S. consumers traveled on cruise ships in 2018. The cruise industry provided 421,711 U.S. jobs in 2018. Those people earned $23.5 billion in wages and salaries. That means because of cruising, people were able to pay their mortgages, feed their family, keep their lights on, live the American dream. Those are American workers. The cruise lines themselves, through material purchases, food, other things, $23.96 billion spend in the United States. If we look at it, the total economic impact of cruise lines in the U.S., $52.7 billion. Is it too big to fail? Are you willing to throw away an economic impact of over $50 billion because you're on the chip about where a cruise ship is flagged? Are you ready to throw away the livelihood of 400,000 Americans because you are disgruntled about these cruise lines flying the Bahamian flag? The interesting thing that I found in this data that I wasn't expecting, that really doesn't have anything to do with this pro-American argument, is the top 10 states that benefit from cruising. Well, I guess it does fit in there. These are American states, right? Let's go from number one. Can you guess what number one is? Florida, my home state, the state that I've called home for 5 months. Florida, the number one state that benefits from cruising. Number two, California. Number two. Number three, Texas. Number four, New York State. Number five, Alaska. Number six, Washington. Number seven, Georgia. Number eight, Illinois. Number nine, New Jersey. And number 10, Louisiana. All right. Is this paralysis by analysis? Do we have too much data? What is the takeaway? What is the long and short of it? Look, you can be pro-American, but I think to be pro-American, you have to be pro-cruise industry. I'll say that the argument exists there. If you care about American jobs, a significant amount of American jobs, if you care about Americans being able to pay their bills, keep food on their table, take care of their families, then you can't just write off cruise industries because you don't like flags of convenience. That's my argument. I am welcome for you to tell me that I am wrong, and tell me what we should do with people who have hooked their wagon up to the cruise industry as a source of income and a source of livelihood. Do we kick them by the wayside, or do we bond with them as our fellow countrymen? How about that? That's the patriotic appeal. What do you think? Leave a comment below. All right, let me climb down off the soapbox and talk about something more enjoyable to me. Pizza. That is today's trivia or contest, whatever you want to say. I'm going to show you 4 pictures of cruise ship pizza, and your task is to tell me what cruise line do they come from. I'm a big fan of Late Night Pizza, LNP. These are 4 pictures of pizza. Tell me what cruise line do they come from. Here is picture number 1. That looks yummy. Picture number 2. Here comes pizza number 3. And finally, pizza number 4. Leave a comment 1 through 4. Which cruise lines did this pizza come from? I'll be interested to see if anybody can get it right. Thank you so much for stopping by. Lots of cruise news going on. I covered the story just a couple days ago of how a former Royal Caribbean cruise line went bankrupt. Just what we're talking about today, these companies struggling. Check that video out. Also check out this other video recommended by the robots at YouTube. Show your support for the channel by hitting the like button. This is Tony for the Lido Loca Cruise Show. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.